Forget. Yep, we're good.
All
Do
right.
you want me to lead or you want to lead?
You go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Start us out.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if I've met everyone. I've met a lot of people, but I'm Chris Mankey, one of the pastors of our synod. I got to hold this up like this. So we're excited to do another tour with you. So I don't know how many this is for us.
This is 3 since I retired.
3 since Paul retired. So and many more before that.
This is 4 since I retired. Yeah, 4.
4.
Yeah.
And you did how many before that?
They're counting how many trips they've taken.
4 or 5,
4 or
something
5.
like that.
And Gail has done 40. Is it 40? It's a few. We don't keep track. So, and I've done a bunch too. And so we've done lots of trips, and we're always excited to do another one. So we're going to go around the room and just say a little bit about yourself. Again, I'm Chris Mankey. I'm a pastor in the Synod. I was at St. Matthew's. I know a few of you from St. Matthew's, and I was there for 24 years. I've been in my current role on the Synod staff. I'm not technically on the Synod staff, but I'm in the Synod office. So I'm with Outreach for Hope. So I'm the benefactor of our pens tonight. So if you didn't get one, please take one with you. They're free. So I flood the Synod with those pens. So Outreach for Hope, in case you don't know, is one of our Synod ministries. Essentially, we help raise money for our inner city churches. So we have 22 different ministries we help to financially support. And then I'm always looking, the second part to it is I'm always looking for ways to connect people with our partners. So I'm constantly preaching all over our Synod. I'll be here, what is it, 5th or something like
The
that?
8th.
The 8th, June 8th. I won't show up on the 5th.
Please do not.
Okay.
No one will be here.
Wrong date. At least I'd be early.
You would.
So that'd be good. So that's enough about me.
Okay.
A little bit about yourself.
Paul Bolgren. I was one of the pastors here at St. John's from 1982 to 2001. And then I served at Grace and Grafton from 2001 until 2021 when I retired. And Karen and I are back here at St. John's. In fact, I am the president of the church council. So they didn't let me just sit in the pew. And
you would think you'd know better.
I know you would. You would. My wife, Karen, and our adult daughter, Samantha, are both going on the trip. They're both, unfortunately, under the weather a bit tonight. So they're not here. But looking forward to it.
I wonder if you should try to get this.
I'm going to pass this around and
you don't have Zoom on your phone, do you?
All right. So I'm Deb Donovan. My husband's Scott. We have traveled with Pastor Paul in the past, two trips, two trips, I think. We've actually even done footsteps with Paul, I think we decided, but it's a little bit different itinerary, and we're really excited to go to Istanbul. That's the one thing we were like, oh, we might want to check this out. So, yeah. So
I'm Scott. Debbie usually speaks for me, so I don't have much more to say. When I saw Istanbul, that's when I said, "Oh, we got to check this out." So that's the real draw for me. We've been as far north in Greece as Meteora, Thessalonica, and down to Athens and Corinth. But we haven't done much in Turkey except for being at Ephesus. So that's what we would be looking forward to.
You should have started with Gail here.
Oh.
Being one of the leaders, I should have started with you, so I apologize. This is how you stand good grace.
You know, actually, this is all by accident that this trips idea has grown to the point that it has. But I think it's because of the enthusiasm that both Chris and Paul have for not only travel, but there's so much out there to see and so much that relates to your faith. And I'm just so glad that I got hooked on it when I did. So yeah, I've traveled a lot, but I've also been with some incredible people, and I've also learned how People are thirsty for knowledge, and this is a way of doing it in a very safe situation where you kind of know everyone before you go, and you just have this feeling of, it's almost like a family feeling. And so I think that is the beautiful thing that has developed from this ministry that Paul and Chris have been doing. So I'm loving it and enjoying every minute of it. Okay. Who wants it?
This one?
I'm Dave Urell. Donna and I have been members of St. John's for the past 17 years. We have never, time flies, yes. We have never traveled beyond the Americas, so this is going to be eye-opening for us. I think this is going to be a great trip. The culture in these countries, I can't wait to experience. And I have to confess, I'm not a student of the Bible, but I'm very interested in hearing Paul's story and how he engaged these cultures and how it impacted him.
I'm Donna Urell, and I am looking forward to seeing, going outside the Americas, as Dave put it, and in walking in the footsteps of Paul, and being the study of Greece and of Turkey.
I am Pam Truex, and my husband will be joining me as well on the trip. He's golfing down south right now. We have been members of St. John's since 2000. We came and Paul left.
Sorry.
But Gail Rennie, I think, has been after us to go on a trip since we joined, probably. I don't know. And so now we're going. I went out for coffee with her, just enough times where, so we got it going. But we are very much looking forward to exploring Greece and Turkey and the footsteps of Paul. We have not been to either country, so looking forward to it.
Hi, I'm Dan, and this is Nancy. We're retired, we're looking for adventures. We were members of St. Matthew's. That's where we ran into Pastor Chris, and we've done a few of these trips. Footsteps of Paul, Israel, Germany, and we've enjoyed them immensely.
Hi, I'm Nancy, and I would just reiterate what Dan said. I think this is the 5th trip we've gone on, and we just love doing this kind of travel. It's always so interesting. We learn so much. We did the first Footsteps of Paul trip, but there are places here we haven't been, and it sounds like a great idea.
Thank you. I'm Sally Piernan, and we did Israel and Istanbul with Gail, Chris, and Paul in 2021, maybe? 22. And we did the Footsteps of the Apostle Paul one in 2019 with our former pastor, Greg Van Dunk, and Larry Harpster. So we've been to a couple places here, but interested in going to more.
I think either of us are as crazy as Larry Harpster. So.
Larry's a world to himself.
Trying to stop for games a little bit.
I'm Bob Piernan. Again, like Sally said, we've traveled, and fortunate enough, Gail's kept us in contact and let us know trips. So she knows we like to travel, and we're also going to help Chris look for a rug.
Oh, that was a good story.
Go ahead, Greg.
You talk.
No, go ahead.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Bob Davis. For that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm Bob Davis, my wife Karen, and we've been on a couple of trips.
We did part one.
Yeah, part one. And so like I said, this has been a very interesting deal. We're fairly new to the church. We've been here about how many years now? 5 years now. So as we've gone, we've seen new faces and different experiences and stuff like that. And it's been a great help to our faith and learning, you bet.
And I'm Karen Davis, and we've been very fortunate to go on the footsteps of Paul 2 years ago with Pastor Paul and Pastor Mark. And it was a phenomenal trip, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of the story of Paul. I'm looking forward to seeing Cappadocia. When I saw that, that was my target. So I'm excited about that. But the friendships that we've developed on these trips have been phenomenal. And it's not like traveling with people that you have seen somewhere, but it's like traveling with your family and friends. And that makes it even more special and exciting.
I'm Don Hintz. I've been a member here about 7 years. Last year was my first trip with this group, and I was talked into it by a combination of people, mostly Bob and Karen Davis, who are longtime friends, and they were our Amtrak partners when my wife was alive. And they assured me that I would be okay, and Gail kept bugging me and said, "You'll be just fine." And I was.
Okay.
Well, we have a couple people online. Do you guys want to, I should, let's see, make sure you're off of mute. Let's see, there's Jill. Jill, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Jill Nelson, and my husband Tim Nelson will be joining me on the trip also, but he's at a meeting right now. We are former members of St. Matthew's, so that's how we know Chris. We were probably members there for, I don't know, 24 years. We now live in Florida. So we will be meeting you there because we'll fly in from down here. But we've done multiple trips with Chris, being mission trips and whatever. And then we've also done, we did the pilgrimage in Israel, and we also did the footsteps of, I don't know if that's what we called it. We went to Germany and followed where Martin Luther was. Was that the footsteps of Martin Luther? I don't know.
Yes.
So yeah, we love these trips and traveling and seeing new things, and excited to go again.
Glad you're coming. And Randy and Erica?
Hey guys. Yeah, we also did we're travel partners with Bob and Sal Piernan, and we've done Egypt, Israel, Footsteps of Paul's, the first one, the Martin Luther trip. And we live in Ettrick, Wisconsin, but we'll be traveling with Bob and Sal. We'll come down there and stay overnight before we take off. So
awesome.
That's about it.
All right. Thank you. We're going to turn it over to Pastor Paul for.
You got it all loaded and ready to go?
Yes.
All right.
Give me one second. I do, but let me get. All right.
I got a bunch of pictures, but I'll take you through them quickly. And in showing you what I have here, showing you very briefly all the sites we're seeing, knowing that some of us have been to some of them, but not others, and others of us to those other ones, but not to the some of them. And so this is a trip that blends a lot of things. And so if you've been someplace and you say, I don't know if I really want to see that again, our goal is to give you options. Okay. Another thing is a lot of folks ask, how hard is it to travel overseas, walking and all of that? So I've got a couple of things to show you. Some places where it's a little more difficult, but some places where they make it really easy.
I can hear it better now. But...
So that's my goal. And so I'm gonna just point.
Hey, Randy and Erica, could you put yourself on mute?
If I can see us, I can't see us. All I can see is the down below, the full screen.
Yeah, let me, okay, I think I can do it. Yeah, you're on mute. There we go. Okay, thank you. We'll bring you back off of mute when we want to hear from you.
All right. So this is the Apostle Paul, Footsteps of Paul, part 2. So here we go.
Here we go.
And again, we're following the travels of Paul, which are outlined in the New Testament book of the Acts of the Apostles, which tells the story of what happened after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus for about 20 to 30 years until Paul at the very end ends up in Rome where his life ended. Okay, next one. And the two key characters in the Acts of the Apostles are Paul and Peter. We will focus on this trip on Paul. And again, you can see, and Gail has a map someplace back there, of our basic route. We're going to follow Paul, this part of the trip, and to Ephesus. Paul wasn't necessarily in Cappadocia, but the Cappadocian Jews are mentioned in the story of Pentecost. And Paul did not go to Istanbul, but that's okay. We'll forgive him for that because Istanbul is really cool. Next one. And our letters, the letters of Paul will be the focus of everything we do. Wherever Paul went, he would write letters to churches, sometimes dealing with problems, sometimes dealing with good things, like churches today. But so on our trip, we will spend a lot of time looking at the letters of Paul. And again, you can see Paul's letters, Ephesus, Ephesians, obviously, Philippi, Philippians, Thessalonica, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Corinthians. He did not write a letter to the Athenians, but he was in Athens on one of his missionary journeys. And it's important for us to remember in our age with these things that in Paul's day, the letters we have of Paul, and it is amazing that we do not have any of the original letters Paul wrote, but it is amazing that we have copies of the letters Paul wrote, because these letters were sent by hand from Paul to the various churches where he was either had established a ministry or where he hoped, in the case of the Romans, to one day start a ministry. And if Paul lived in the time of the Roman Empire, okay? He was, his ministry took place basically during the reign of the emperor, perhaps the Emperor Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. And Rome was the superpower of the world at that time, and everywhere Paul went, it was controlled by Rome. You can see that. This is what Rome looked like 150 years after the time of Paul, but it wasn't that much smaller. Rome controlled everything, and Rome made sure, next one, he made sure it controlled everything with its military. The Roman legions, a strict hand on all the occupied or conquered territories. And that is so important for us to remember, because Paul is always under the ever watchful, sometimes not too friendly watchful eye of the Roman Empire. Next one. Paul was a missionary of Jesus Christ. He didn't intend to be a missionary of Jesus Christ. When we meet Paul in the book of Acts, he is actually a Pharisee in Jerusalem who's out to kill Christians. He's out to destroy the church. He hates Jesus until one day he has that incident on the road to Damascus in Syria, where he's on his way to arrest Christians, bring them back to Jerusalem to put them on trial. And after that moment, Paul would spend the rest of his life as the greatest servant Jesus had ever had. Because Paul was one who had an experience with the risen Christ. In fact, in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul makes a list of all those who had seen the risen Christ. He talks about Cephas, Peter, the disciples, the 500, Jesus' own brother James. And then he says, and as to one untimely born. And the word untimely born, the image is of a fetus that is aborted but yet lives. I'm not supposed to be here, says Paul. But as to one untimely born, he appeared also to me. So wherever Paul went, he would proclaim the ministry of Jesus Christ. This is actually the oldest depiction of Paul. We do not know what Paul looked like. All we know is he probably had some physical problems, because he talks about them a number of times. He talks about the thorn in the flesh. He talks about his weak eyes and things like that. This is from a church on Crete where we're not going. But again, we don't know what he looked like, but we certainly know what an individual he was, and we'll talk about that a lot on the trip. It is important to know that in the Roman Empire, now I live up in Grafton, so I drive down for things. I took Highway 164 because I realized 4394 was going to be a zoo today. Took me an hour 20, because I stopped at McDonald's, to travel from Grafton down here. In the time of the Apostle Paul, everything traveled at the speed you could walk. And that is really important, because when Paul takes these missionary journeys, he is not hopping on an airplane. Most of the time he is walking. Sometimes he would take a ship. He tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, he says, 3 times I have been shipwrecked. I spent a day and a night bobbing on the seas, all of this because of his missionary journey. So the world in which Paul lived is a world that is very slow paced compared to ours. A much more simple lifestyle for most people compared to ours. And you'll get a feel for that as we do some of our traveling. Paul did not intend to go to Greece. It never had crossed his mind. As he finishes one of his missionary journeys, he's in Troas, which is in northwestern modern-day Turkey, which was the Roman province of Asia. Again, the Romans controlled everything that was Turkey as well. And one night, as he's trying to figure out what's going to happen, he has a dream. And in the dream, he has a vision of a man standing on the shore in Macedonia, which is across the sea, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Now, God has never spoken to me through dreams before, but the dreams are big in the Bible. And Paul took this dream as a sign that this is what I'm supposed to do. And so he headed on to Greece, not knowing what was going to happen. And from Troas, he goes to Neapolis, and then Philippi, Berea, and Thessalonica. And we're going to be in Thessalonica and Philippi. And even though we are starting first in Thessalonica, I'm going to talk about Philippi first, because that's where Paul goes first. And in Philippi, when he goes there, his modus operandi, he would go someplace, he would find Jews usually, and he'd just start talking about Jesus. And so when he went to Philippi, he went down to the river where the women went to wash the clothes, and he met a woman named Lydia. And if you've ever been in a circle, women's circles in the old ALC or ELCA, remember the Dorcas circle? Okay, Lydia and Dorcas, same lady, named different names, different languages, means antelope. That was what her name means. And he meets this woman named Lydia, and she becomes the very first convert on Paul's missionary work. And one of the places we will see in Philippi is this is the traditional site where Paul met Lydia. And I hope this will be a wonderful opportunity for us to take a little worship service, because we're going to have a number of worship services on the trip.
Do they have purple cloth there?
That dyer, yeah, Lydia was a dyer of purple cloth, purple cloth was from modern day Lebanon, Tyre, made from little teeny snails who would be crushed. And from that, you get the purple dye. And it was very, very expensive. And that's what Lydia did. Okay. In Philippi, Paul gets arrested. Paul gets arrested a lot. And we'll tell you the story of how he got arrested. He and his traveling companion, they are locked up in the prison. And one thing you need to know about Paul is Paul was a Roman citizen. He had been born with dual citizenship. He was a Jew, but he was also a Roman citizen. And when he's locked up in the prison in Philippi, he kind of lets slip, I'm a Roman and you arrested me illegally. And all the leaders of Philippi, they come begging him, please, 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 please leave us. It's a great story how Paul handles all of this and uses this as an opportunity to make some converts, including the jailer and the family are the first people Paul baptizes in Greece. Paul's letter to the Philippians, you will hear a lot about that from me on this trip. Philippians is my favorite letter of Paul. It's my favorite book in the Bible. Most of the time in Paul's letters, he's writing to the churches because they're messing stuff up. And he has to yell at them, or he has to go, "What are you doing?" The Galatians, he calls, "You ignorant Galatians." He loved the Philippians, and the Philippians loved him. And so every day we will have devotions. A number of times in the evening, we'll have a time just to get together and talk. I'm going to talk a lot about Philippians. If you haven't read Philippians, it's 4 chapters. Okay? We can handle that one. We will see lots of ancient things. This is one of the theaters in Philippi. We'll see a number of these, especially the huge one in Ephesus coming up. In Thessalonica in the Bible, Thessaloniki now, most of the ancient ruins have been torn down, lost to history, built over. But we will see these amazing churches. This is the Basilica of St. Demetrius, next one. And when we are in Greece, we are in Eastern Orthodox territory, okay, with the election of the new Pope coming next week. That's the Roman Catholic Church in the West. We will be in the Greek Orthodox section of Christianity on this trip. And we'll also see the Church of Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia is just Greek meaning holy wisdom. Another ancient church, these churches over 1,000 years old. I mean, when I came to St. John's in 1982, St. John's was 20 years old. Okay, the oldest house in Grafton where I live was built in 1854. Okay, you tell that to someone living in Greece and they're going to go, boom. Yeah, what? You're going to see a lot of old buildings. And again, you'll see the beautiful, especially in the Orthodox churches, the beautiful painting, the icons inside. It's just dazzling, just dazzling. Next one. We are going to go to Meteora monasteries. I've never been there. I've only seen pictures, and it looks amazing because that's where they're built. Next one. Okay, it's a series of monasteries up on these hills. This is one of the places where it's getting around is a bit more difficult. But if you ever on the trip find yourself, I don't think I can do that, you don't have to. Find a restaurant, find a place to have some coffee or whatever you want to do. Go shopping. We'll make sure you're good. So we don't want people to think I have to do this if they're not quite sure they can do that. That's a really important thing for that. This is where we'll be staying. This is the town where we're going to stay. I've been to southern Greece. I've not been to northern Greece. And I am really looking forward to going to northern Greece, this beautiful, mountainous, wooded, forested territory. Thank you. Again, another view of Meteora. Just gorgeous. Okay, next one. Then we're going to Delphi, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Apostle Paul or with the New Testament. But Delphi was known as the spot where the oracle lived. The Oracle of Delphi, not a psychic, not a fortune teller, but the oracles were women who were thought to be empowered by gifts of divination to tell people what to do. It's thought today, you can see the little fumes coming up, that this shrine where the Delphi oracle lived was over an area that would leak fumes. And it's thought that they would breathe in the fumes, which would, in effect, get them high, and they would make their, not prophecies, but they would answer questions that people have. Always in riddles, always in they wouldn't just say yes or no. They'd always get some sort of answer that you'd have to figure out. And again, today there are ruins, but in ancient times, it was this magnificent complex. Delphi was a big, important place for the Greeks. Next one. Because even Alexander the Great came to Delphi. And he wanted to know, should I go and conquer India? And it was interesting. It was the oracle's day off. Let me put it, her day off. And she said, come back. And Alexander the Great didn't like that. So he just took it as a yes, that he would do that. I think I have that story correct. So we will see the beautiful ruins of Delphi. And then we are off to Athens, the capital of modern day Greece and one of the great cities of the ancient world. This is the Acropolis, which simply means the high city in Greece. Next one. And we will go to the Acropolis, and the most important building on the Acropolis is the Parthenon. Parthenon is simply the Greek word for virgin, because the Parthenon was dedicated to the goddess Athena, who was the daughter of Zeus and the great virgin goddess. This was the central worship community governmental site in ancient Greece, a magnificent place. Next one. And the Parthenon, when we see ancient buildings, we see the white marble and we think they're all white. The ancients painted everything. It was painted in garish colors. So the outside of the Acropolis looked probably something like this. In fact, when we go to the museum, the Acropolis Museum in Athens, you will still see some of the friezes from an earlier Parthenon that still have the paint on them. The Parthenon survived antiquity in almost perfect shape until 1678, when the Venetians were fighting the Turks, and the Turks were besieging Athens, and the Greeks thought it would be a good idea to store their gunpowder in the Acropolis, in the Parthenon. And a Turkish shell landed there and blew it up, and that's why it looks like it does today. So this is the Acropolis. All the various temples and other governmental buildings, a theater down to the bottom. Next one. Aerial view of what it looks like today. It's just amazing to walk on. This is the Erechtheum. And this little tree here was in theory was planted by Athena, and it's the same tree she planted in mythological antiquity. One of the things, if walking's difficult for you, I don't want to climb stairs. At the Acropolis, they now have an elevator. We didn't have it in 2018, but we had it in 2023. So if there's anyone where I don't think I can get up there, you can get a ride, which is really nice. They're making it nice and easy for folks. Right south of the Acropolis is this place called the Areopagus, which is the Greek word for Mars Hill, dedicated to the god Mars or Ares. And it was on this site that the Apostle Paul had a big theological conversation with the philosophers of Greece. This is a line from Acts. It says, now all the Athenians and their foreigners living there, they would spend their time in nothing but telling or hearing something new. Luke, the author of Acts, not overly impressed with the Athenians. And so Paul here goes into this big conversation with the Athenians about, when he says, when I came into town, I saw monuments and altars to every possible god, but I also found one inscribed to an unknown God. And then Paul says, this unknown God whom you do not know, I do know. And that's how he approaches it to talk about Jesus Christ. And this is actually an altar found in Athens dedicated to an unknown God. Whether that's the actual one Paul saw or not, we don't know. But Paul would take anything he could, like any good preacher would, to try and get his message across in ways that people can understand. Now, if you've been to the Acropolis and you don't really want to go again, there are lots of things for you to do. And we're building in free time on this trip. So you can go, this is all south of the Acropolis. This is the Agora. This is rebuilt, but this is the ancient market of Athens. You can just walk around there. Excellent. This is the temple of Hephaestus, or Vulcan, the great, the crippled god who made stuff. And this is the best preserved Greek temple existing in the world. It's in immaculate shape. This is a temple built by the Emperor Hadrian. When we went here in 2018, this was just a couple blocks from our hotel, and we walk over and go, that's really cool. That's 1900 years old, and I can just walk up to it. Or this enormous temple of Jupiter, where only a few columns stand. So give you free time if you want to go do that instead of seeing the other stuff. You can also go to museums, and they have wonderful museums. This is the Acropolis Museum, where all the friezes and statues from the Parthenon are now kept. Not just the Parthenon today, but the Parthenon that was destroyed by the Persians in 490 BC. And when the Greeks rebuilt the new Parthenon, which is the one that's there now, they took all these statues, these painted friezes, and they buried them. And when they were excavated, these are the ones that still have the paint on them. Just a view of what you'll see. If you like marble, you're going to love this trip. And you can also go shopping. There's this beautiful, yes, Sally. There's this beautiful area called the Plakouts, and it's easy to get there. Sometimes the bus will drop you there, or you can just take a cab. It's easy to take cabs in Athens, or take the metro. They have an underground. And if you like food, there's nothing better in the world, to me at least, than Greek food. And there are restaurants everywhere.
I think we're going to eat well on this.
We're going to eat real well, yes. Okay, next one just gives you, my wife cannot wait. My wife loves vegetables and cheese, and she cannot wait to get back to Athens. So that is Athens. Also, this is the Olympic Stadium when the Olympics were reorganized in 1896. This is where the track and field events took place, and we'll be able to go and see that. Next one. And one of the few things in Athens is they have stray cats everywhere, which aren't really strays because they're taken care of. So we have 3 cats at our house. We love cats. And so you will see cats everywhere in Athens, just as in Istanbul, you will see dogs everywhere that are cared for. And when we were there, we saw a lady carrying a duck. I just like that picture. The lady and her duck.
I was going to say this has nothing to do with the
Has nothing to do with the trip, nothing to do with the Bible. It was just a lady carrying the duck. Okay. We're going to take a side trip to Corinth. And again, if you've been to Corinth, you don't want to go again, you have a free day to see what you'd like to see in Athens. Corinth was a major seaport. Paul spent 18 months in Corinth. Paul worked as a tent maker, and he lived with a couple named Prisca and Aquila, who were Jews who'd been expelled from Rome by Emperor Claudius. And he spent his time preaching and teaching in the synagogues and also in the small Christian community that grew up in Corinth. The picture before, that's the pillars from a 7th century BC, 750 years before Paul, temple to, I believe that's Jupiter. Okay, it's a beautiful bus drive from Athens to Corinth. Just gorgeous driving through. This is the Peloponnesian Peninsula down there. All right. And again, Corinth probably was a city of about 250,000 in Paul's time. It was a huge, huge area. It was, like I said, the ships would come and then their cargo would be carried overland to the other side where they put back in and then continue on its way. So it was just an enormous place. And as I said, Paul spent his time there. He'd work during the week as a tent maker. And on the Sabbath, he would go and preach in the synagogues. And on Sunday, he'd lead worship in the Christian church. In ancient times, the Emperor Nero, who was emperor during Paul's ministry, tried to dig a canal to cut the way through the isthmus, linking the mainland to the Peloponnnesia. He wasn't successful, but in the late 19th century, this canal was completed. It's very deep and very narrow, and there's a great spot where the bus will stop, and you can walk out on a bridge, and you can go like that and just think, that was all cut out from there. On the top of the hill in Corinth were Greek and pagan temples. And one of the big issues Paul has to deal with in Corinth, which we'll talk about on the trip, is these Christians who had been pagans up until like a year before, 2 years before Paul comes. They're still wondering, how do we deal with our pagan beliefs, which we've grown up for generations, and this new Christian faith? And it dealt with all kinds of things, including such weird things as, can you eat meat that was offered to an idol? To us, it's, huh? But that was big, big stuff. It's like, what color are the new vestments going to be on the altar? And who's going to make them? That kind of big stuff that people can fight about, okay? So that's the importance of Corinth. And we will also, you can go to the next one. We'll walk around and see all the beautiful ruins in Corinth. It's a nice flat site, which is very nice for walking around. Corinth is a wonderful flat site. And this is a replica, but when Corinth was excavated in the 1920s, I believe, they found this stone with the name Erastus, who was the treasurer of Corinth. He's also mentioned in Paul's letters. He was a Christian and a member of the church. And so this is a direct connection to one of the people who knew Paul. And I was an ancient history major in college, and I just think that's so geeky neat that there's that connection, right? We will also have a worship service in Corinth because 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about Holy Communion, oldest reference to communion. So we'll have a beautiful spot under trees where you can have services there as well. Then we're going to fly to Ephesus. If you've done previous trips, we're not taking a ship this time, but we'll fly to Ephesus, which again was one of the great cities of the ancient Roman world. Ancient Greek world, city that was originally a seaport that is now silted up, but it had a population of about 250,000. Paul spent 24 months in Ephesus, longer than he spent anywhere else in his ministry journeys. This is the wonderful library of Celsus, which doesn't date from Paul's time. This was built during the time of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, which is about 70 to 80 years after the time of Paul, but it's just an amazing building. Excellent. Again, this is what Ephesus used to look like. Here is the harbor, and then this long, it's called a cardo, a walkway with stores all over it, leading to the main city. The river silted up, the harbor silted up. Ephesus is now a couple of miles inland, but in Paul's time, it was a major seaport. It was also the site of one of the wonders of the ancient world, the temple of Artemis, who was the goddess of the fields, the goddess of fertility. This was one of the great sites. This temple was a football field and a half long, 470 feet long by about 80 feet wide. Just imagine, ancient world, they built that. And this would stand up on the Acropolis at Ephesus for everyone to see. And this temple was where they worshiped the goddess Artemis. And that's a depiction of Artemis. There's great debate on what all those circles are on her. It has been said those are breasts to show she's a goddess of fertility. It's been suggested those are bull testes because she's a goddess of fertility. It's been suggested those are honeycombs because she's a goddess of fertility. But Artemis was the great goddess of Ephesus, and Paul got into trouble because when he was preaching, he was telling people, don't worship idols. And there was a big business in Ephesus. If you like buying souvenirs, you're not new. In the ancient world, people loved souvenirs. And there were silversmiths who would make little statues of Artemis to sell. And when Paul came to Ephesus, he had such an effect that their business was going bad, and they started a riot. And they ran around the city going, great is the Artemis of the Ephesians. And Paul and his companions were arrested. They were thrown in prison yet one more time. He was put on trial in this theater, which we will see, that seated 30,000 people. Again, American Family Field seats 42,000. Okay, 30,000 people gives you an amazing understanding of what this is like. This is the Library of Celsus in Ephesus. When you go into Ephesus, you walk down the main street past all these amazing ruins. There are ruins from the Greek period, from the Roman period. Next one. Again, this is classic Roman, Greco-Roman. Again, this is in Asia, Turkey, Asia, but it's controlled by Rome. They speak Greek here, not Latin. Next one. This is the smaller theater in Ephesus. This one only seats 12,000 people. Just kind of, it's the little movie theater down the block. Public latrines. Okay. The Romans had a wonderful sanitary system. And most people, you did not have a bathroom in your house. You would go to the latrines. And this is where people, I don't remember who said this, but this is where people would do their business in two ways. Okay, you do your business going to the bathroom, but this is where you'd also handle business affairs. So while you're sitting down, you're negotiating deals with others. And so you'll see these as well. This is an inscription it's in Greek, but it's to the Roman Emperor Trajan, who ruled from 98 to 117 after the time of Paul. Next one. And this is Christian crosses from the Crusade period, okay? 1,000 years later after the time of Paul. Here is a statue of Artemis, okay? The goddess Artemis with whatever those is on her. This is from before the time of Paul. Kind of get an idea how old this city was. It existed up until 600 or 700 AD when the harbor silted up, and then it was abandoned and fell into disrepair. It was covered up. But now it's been excavated, and you'll get to see all these amazing places as we walk through. Again, the streets are paved, wonderful Roman paved roads, very easy to walk on. The tour itself is a nice downhill tour. And we're going to stay in the city of Izmir. Not been there, but I read a little bit about it. If you've been to Ephesus, you don't really want to go again. You can spend your day in Izmir. You can shop, and you can eat, because Turkish food is really, really good as well. Then we're taking a number of short flights, and the reason we're doing the flights is so you don't sit on a bus for 10 hours. We're going to fly to Cappadocia, which is in central Turkey. Again, Cappadocia is mentioned in the story of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, that there are Jews who were in Jerusalem for the Pentecost who came from Cappadocia. It has this most amazing landscape. And what it's best known for is all these cliffs and underground caverns where people lived. They would build not just homes, cities were built into the cliffs and underground in Cappadocia. These amazing natural formations. This is a huge tourist area, and it's one of the most beautiful places around. Here, these underground cities were discovered about 150 years ago, and up to 20,000 people would live underground for protection. And so you will have a chance, next couple of pictures, to wander through. Next one. Through all of that. With all these natural pillars, in the early Christian church period, there were holy men called stylites. And what they would do is they would sit on top of those pillars for years and years and years and pray and pray and preach and preach. And, you know, we have trouble sitting through a 15-minute sermon. And they would sit in a pillar for years and years, but that's what they were like. And then we're going to go to Istanbul. I'm so happy when we took this trip, the Israel-Istanbul trip 3 years ago. My wife Karen couldn't go because our younger daughter Hannah was in chemotherapy for her cancer. So I'm so happy that Karen and Samantha can come, because Istanbul will knock your socks off. That's all I can say. It is, it's the capital, or it's not, it's the largest city in Turkey. It is the only city in the world located on 2 continents. One side's in Europe, the other side is in Asia. It has a population of, depending upon how much of Istanbul you measure, 7 to 14 million people. And it is a city that has an ancient history. This is the Blue Mosque. And I think that's a picture you took, Chris. It's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. I'm just going to show you sights here. Okay. This is the Bosphorus, the narrow strip of water that leads out of the Mediterranean into the Black Sea. This is where you'll find it. The Emperor Constantine the Great, the one who legalized Christianity in the early 4th century, he moved the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to the city he called Constantinopolis. Okay, he minted coins. I collect ancient Roman coins, so I'm going to bore you a few times on the trips. But this is the coin here, and on the front it says Constantinopoli, and it shows a winged victory. She's standing on the prow of a ship. And this one was minted in Antioch, but this was the capital of the Roman Empire for centuries. This is what it looked like in the time of Constantine the Great and in the century or so following. The huge hippodrome. Okay, next one, which is still there. It's now a public walkway, but you can walk and see where the hippodrome was. Hippodrome is where it means horse place. Okay, it's where they ran the horse races. And this obelisk was standing there 1,700 years ago. Okay. One of the most amazing things is Constantine built an underground water cistern. And if those of you who've been there, remember how amazing this is. This underground area that was simply for water storage, but it's also a work of art. And this is one of the places that will just knock your socks off to see what that looks like. After the Roman Empire collapsed, the Byzantine Empire then took over, and this was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. They called the city Byzantium then, or Constantinople as well. And the Eastern Empire lasted up until about 1450 AD, just shortly before the time of Luther, when it was conquered by the Muslims. But you will see the most famous building from Byzantine period is Hagia Sophia, the church dedicated to Holy Wisdom, which was one of the truly amazing sites of the ancient world. Today it is a mosque. And this is what it looks like inside. It is just jaw-dropping. So when we will be going in, and you take your shoes off because it's a mosque, and you can just walk around and just stare at a building that is 1,400 years old and still being used. Constantinople had immense fortifications. In fact, it was only conquered twice in all of its history. First in the early 1300s, or in the 13th century, by the Crusaders, who figured we're not going to drive the Turks out of Israel, so let's just kill all the Christians and take over Constantinople. And then later in 1453, when the Turks took it over, and it then became the capital of the Turkish Empire. And this is the Blue Mosque, one of the enormous mosques that you will see enormous mosques. I can't even begin to describe how big they are. Okay. This is the Topkapi Palace. This is where the rulers of the Ottoman Turk Empire lived for 500 years almost. It's now a museum. Just an amazing thing. Next one. And if you want, one of the options we will have in Istanbul is to take a boat ride on the Bosphorus. Just going up and down and let your jaw fall open and go, wow, really amazing. Okay. And you can shop. Sally, did you know you can shop in Istanbul? Yes, there is the Grand Bazaar, which goes on for blocks and blocks and blocks. I think it's over 3,000 stores when we were there. And the merchants are so wonderful. I bought Karen some little colored tiles, and the man who ran the store invited me in for tea. And I had to say, I'm sorry, I have to get back, but come on and have some tea. Let's talk. And so you'll see that. Okay. The bazaars. So all these opportunities to shop. Okay. And the food, once again, just absolutely wonderful. And so that's just a very brief outline of our trip. To give you a little food for thought, to prepare yourself, go on YouTube, watch videos about these places on YouTube. It's a great resource just to help you get a little familiar. Questions? I threw a lot at you. I know I threw a lot at you. All right. Look forward to seeing those in person.
Thank you. That
I'll
was
turn it over to
great.
Chris. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And in some of the churches, if you're in the Eastern Orthodox churches, women will probably have to cover your heads, and usually your shoulders and your knees. Just be prepared for that. The guide will let us know about that in advance on these various places. Okay.
We put together just a number of kind of basic things to talk about. You should, oops, let's see, I'm still sharing, aren't I? Oh, what was sharing up there? Let's see. I don't know why that's still sharing up there. Let's turn it off. Sorry. We're flying into Thessalonica. So that's where we start from.
Yeah. Istanbul, then a short flight to Thessalonica.
Yeah. But then we leave from Istanbul at the very end. You can see the listing of flights there at the bottom or on the back page. I'm going to put this up for everybody at home to see. Can you all see it at home? Give me a thumbs up. Randy, can you see it?
We see it.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't sure if you could see it. So couple things. It is kind of later October when we're going, early November. You can imagine it's just a hair cooler everywhere we go. So, it's good to bring layers. Most of the days during, it'll be beautiful, and we've called ahead, the weather's going to be perfect, right? So, days, you probably won't have to be too thick in terms of what you wear, but in the evenings, it gets a little bit cooler. Most of our tours, we kind of have it planned to kind of end around dinner time. So we go back to the hotels and have dinner, and then you can just relax if you want. Some of us are more energetic and say, let's go out and get a drink or whatever, or go see whatever we're seeing. So there'll be options on what you want to do, but based on how you're feeling right then. And Pastor Paul said, it is your trip. So if the day is, you're just saying, I'm just kind of spent. I want to relax. I want to go sit and have coffee at some cafe someplace. It's up to you. So we need to be in communication about that.
And a number of nights at the end of the day, we're just going to have group time where you can come just to talk about the day. If you have questions about what we've seen or the Bible, I'll have some short little presentations. I'll have a devotion for us every day in the morning when we leave. And again, we hope to have at least 2 worship services while we're on the trip.
Yeah. So those are really nice. A good chance for us to connect as a group and chat. And usually it's over a drink too. So if you want to get a glass of wine or a beer or something like that. I did put together, we've used this before, a packing list. I think I incorporated a couple of the ideas people had. If you have other ideas, but this is just some basic stuff of things to think about. If you've done this plenty of times, you know what to bring. I think you guys saved us on that last trip with having the cold medicines. A lot of us got colds at that time. But things to think about. We want you to be comfortable, so while we're traveling, you want to be thinking comfort. So for sure, shoes. I had one lady on one of my trips who she bought brand new shoes, really cute shoes, right before the trip. And all I remember on that trip was her saying, ow, ow, ow. So she had, all sorts of welts on her feet. So think about comfortable shoes. That's really important. One thing I often encourage groups to do, and you could start to think about this now, is start a walking regimen. you know, for yourself. Maybe that's start off with a little bit, whatever that means to you. But the more you do that, the more you're going to be ready for this trip. We're not saying you have to be up to a 8-mile day or anything like that. But, you know, the more you're ready for that, the more comfortable you're going to be on this trip and the more you're going to enjoy it. So, you know, it's a fair amount of walking, even just to get through any airport, you know, it's just kind of what it is. So think about that, start doing those things, and it will help your trip be that much more. Interject anything you want to say on these things too. Interject if you have ideas. Okay. Do I need to tell you that, or probably not? Okay. So money, mostly it's euros in Greece. I have a funny, should I tell my funny euro story? I think it's a funny euro story.
Please do.
Okay. So we went in Athens the last time, I think it was the last time we were there. A whole group, we had been in Athens a few days. We had not had Greek euros. And we thought, you know, we got to go out and get a really good euro someplace, you know. And so we asked, the whole group, it was about 20 of us, wanted to go out for euros that one of the evenings after dinner, believe it. And so we called up some taxis and said to the main driver, we need to go and find a really good euro stand, someplace to get really good euros. And the taxi driver kind of, I know. And we're thinking, I'm not sure you do, but you know, he drives us to a place, drops everybody off. We had like 3 or 4 taxis getting there. We get out and there's not one euro stand around us. And we're looking around and something was wrong. You know, we did something wrong. We finally realized we're standing at the euro shop, you know, where you can exchange your money. And he had given us a really good exchange rate. He said, I know a good place. Well, then we had to walk and find a good euro stand, but we got a good exchange rate right there. So anyways, a lot of this trip, you'll do well with euros if you've got some from a different trip that you've collected, or if you want to go to the bank ahead of time. Usually in terms of exchanging money, you have to do that ahead of time. Nowadays with credit cards, you really don't even need to. You want to say it? The current exchange rate right then, yeah. So you're going to do fine with your credit card. You're going to do fine with a debit card. If you want to have money ahead of time, you can do that. But the exchange rate's probably not as good here at that time. When we get into Turkey, it's lira, but they'll probably take euro a lot of the places, and credit cards and your debit card. So you can think about it ahead if you want, but that's a little bit of a thought on that. We'll answer questions. If you come up with questions, we've got 2 more meetings. We'll have a second meeting, very similar with another presentation, which is great. But if you have questions, please bring them up. We want to get into those. Depending on where we are, usually it's a little bit here and there. So having some coin when you get someplace, and often if you use euro in, you know, for example, Istanbul, they're going to give you Turkish change, you know. So, you know, if you go to restaurants, certain restaurants will have the bathrooms in them, so that becomes another reason to be there. So, yeah. Anything you want to say about that? Yeah. But if you have experiences yourselves that you want to share, things that you've experienced like that, we've got some wonderful travelers with us. Really important to check your passport for the date. It's not just the date it expires. The rule of thumb is the date you get back, add 6 months. So if we're getting back November 4th, what would that be 6 months after that? Thank you. March 4th. So your passport should be good through March 4th. I think the
May 4th.
What's that?
May 4th.
May 4th. Okay. 6 months afterwards. But I think the rule of thumb is they're saying if you end up in our country and for whatever reason, if you end up in one of our jails, your passport better be good to get through the whole process. You know, that won't happen to us, but that's the rule of thumb. I've had people actually get denied getting on the plane to go to that country. So they'll look at your passport and go, you don't have 6 months. So check your passports. Probably good to do that tonight. And I know the last time I had to renew mine not too long ago, it went very quickly. Who knows where that process is right now, but it's good to check it out, look at it, confirm you're good to go. Okay, that's just a reminder to do that. We'll probably remind you at each one of these trips, have you checked your passport? Do you even know where your passport is? You know, that kind of thing. So we've already talked about it's your trip. Participate in what you want. We're going to give you lots of options and lots of things to do, but if you're like, this is too much for me, I want to relax, it's your trip, okay? We already mentioned the daily reflections, the happy hour, whether that's with a drink or just being happy together, that's just us. So it's a good time. I've got, I sent that out in the email, the different meetings coming up. So we've tentatively planned those. We think those dates will work out. But if for some odd reason things change, we'll let you know way in advance. So, but kind of pencil them in your calendars now. And we'll record each one of these. So if people miss them, or if you wanted to go back and watch it again, you're like, what did we say there? You can watch it. It'll be up on YouTube. We'll put those up. Big reminder that if we always say you never know how life is, right? And that's one of the biggest reasons we buy insurance. So we're not saying you have to buy insurance, but the recommendation is that you do, just because stuff happens. Pretty much almost every one of these trips, I've done almost every one. We've had something. I had a person the week before we left was mowing their lawn and fell, completely ripped up their knees, and I mean badly, and could not do a trip. You know, we had another person whose spouse ended up in the hospital, so the both of them did not go. You know, stuff just happens. So it's your choice where you get that insurance. I mean, there's lots of different travel insurance places. Throw out some names, people that have used them. Travel Guard is one. The company has one that you can do it through the company. It's not theirs, they're associated with one. Insure My Trip is another one. I'm sure AAA has something. I mean, there's lots of different ones. It's up to you. You shop around, you know, different prices. But the recommendation is that you get something. So if something to happen, of course, then it's always you had to deal with when Karen couldn't go.
Yeah.
And it's lots of fun afterwards doing that, isn't it?
Yeah, and that one, we did not get our money back because this one, my daughter had cancer and they said that was pre-existing by 3 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, stuff is going to happen with that, but the recommendation is to do it. So that's all we're going to say about it. But, you know, if you have questions, the company AMI, you can work through them as well if you want to talk with them and see what their rates are and that kind of thing. And I don't believe you can do it like right before. You have to, there's a certain amount of time, and I forget what all those rules are.
What it is, yeah.
But especially with pre-existing stuff, you have to do it fairly early. So think about it sooner than later is kind of the recommendation. We have airport fuel and tax in the cost. I think it's like $470 on our flights, but they always have the caveat that, you know, fuel might go up. And if it does, we're going to have to charge a little extra for that change that happens. That hasn't happened to us.
It's only happened once in all the trips that I've been part of.
Yeah.
And it went up $32. I mean,
Yeah. But they're always like, we just want you to know. So we mention it. There will be, we try to arrange a coach bus. Well, it's depending on how many people use it. We'll do a transportation from here where you can park your cars here down to O'Hare, and then they pick us up at O'Hare and bring us back. There's going to be a little cost to that if you want to use it, because not everybody uses it. So that's something to know. We'll arrange that. And we'll talk about that at the last meeting. Yeah. Yeah, based on how many people use it. So. Yeah, we have worked out in the past trips, we've had people contribute to the tips. Just did one trip fund for tips, and then we helped divvy those out. So you didn't have to worry about everybody giving the driver $20 or whatever it was, you know. So we just did one, and we gave them an envelope, and it made it real simple. We have worked that into the price of the trip, and we told the company we don't want to mess with it. You guys mess with it, and we'll just all contribute to it. And then now, if you have exceptional service and you're like, this person was the best, you know, and you want to give them, that's up to you, you know, but we try to put that into the trip, so make it easier. We've got the itinerary on the website. Hopefully you were able to get to that and find it, so that's there. We always talk about maximum flexibility. You know, these trips are, we've worked really hard on getting the agenda all set. We will work with people each day, and, you know, we're checking and we're working on things. Things sometimes don't always go the way you hope they'll go, though, right? And so we always talk about being flexible. We'll try. We're the ones probably that are most like, hey, you know, the group is usually like, it's fine, Chris and Gail and Paul. But so being flexible is really important in this. We'll work really hard to communicate what's going on every day and the time. Usually the night before, often at those times when we get together, is a time to say, okay, here's what's happening tomorrow. We need you at the bus at this time. Think about this. There is a fair amount of movement on this trip. You know, sometimes like in Israel, you show up and you don't have to unpack for 5 days, you know, or you unpack and you don't have to repack. There's a fair amount of movement on this trip because we're going from city to city to city, which, you know, that might be encouragement for you to pack lighter. I'm talking to myself because I'm usually the guy that brings all the tech, and I usually bring about 4 lenses with me and 3 different cameras. I just got a new 360, by the way. It just arrived today, so. So I'm usually the guy with the extra suitcase of stuff that I'm like, why did I bring all this stuff? So anyway, because there's the packing and unpacking, you might want to try to be lighter on what you bring, but it's up to you if you want to have an extra suitcase like me. It is what it is. We have the listing of hotels on the back of the page. I should scroll this down for everybody at home, right? Sorry, there's that stuff. I'll send this out as a document, Jill, Randy, and Erica, as well. So those that missed it. They've got our hotels reserved and such, but they always kind of say it depends on how it all goes and if things change, but they're really working hard. One of the hotels they are extremely excited about, 5-star hotel. I forget which one it was, but they have asked, this is kind of a special thing that they haven't done before with us. And it's partly because of trying to get these really good hotels for us and putting down special deposits. They're saying, hey, the next deposit is due, I think, July 1st, and I think it's $1,000. They're saying, to help us with these hotels, if you would like to make a deposit a little earlier, it'll actually help us a lot to really make sure we've got these reserved and such. Because some of them, they put like a minimal deposit down, and if they can't really secure it by a certain date, then they have to kind of let it go and switch to a different hotel. So if you want to do that, and if you're able to do it, that would actually help us all out as the trip. But July 1st is the date that we've said. They're just saying, if you could push that a little earlier now or even June 1st, that'd be great. But it's, you know, your own financial situation. It's really up to you. July 1st is when the next one's actually due. But again, to help us out, that would be great. Anything else we should say about that or no? So airlines. So we have, this is where, like Gail said, the trip went up in cost a little bit because we've got so many airlines. We had the option of taking buses, but it would have literally been, I think one of them was like a 12-hour drive. And it was like, ouch. We all kind of went, it would be beautiful countryside, and it would be wonderful, you know, if you're what was her name on the Christmas Vacation? I like riding in cars. Yeah. Anyway, it would have been beautiful, but it also would have taken a whole day to do that. We would have been exhausted by the time we got there. So we've added a couple flights in here. So we have the flight getting in. We go into Istanbul, then we do a short hop to get into Thessalonica, where we start. Go ahead. It added, yeah. It kind of, yeah.
That's why it really kind of evens out pretty well.
Yeah.
It's not that big. I would like to speak to the airlines. Some people have, oh, do you need this?
Yes.
Okay. Some people have talked about, is it possible to do an upgrade on the air flight over and back? I'm going to check with the office on that, and we'll include that in an email and send it out to everyone. It'll take a while for them to get back to us on that. I believe I'm correct in saying that Turkish Air does not have first class. They only have, I don't know if they call it business class or if they have another name for it. So I don't think they have first class. So I will check on that and I will let you know. The other option is land only. So you say, I want to get my airfare. I've got points. I'd like to use my points and not have to worry about the airfare. The land only cost, and we can put this in a reminder email, is, let me just double check. Land only is 4,212. So that gives you, if you've never used that before, that gives you the opportunity of getting your own airline tickets, doing whatever you want to do. Some people have gone on trips, they've arrived earlier just to get used to the, the jet lag. And some people have said, well, we're going to go from Istanbul to, we're going to fly and see our cousin in Germany. I mean, people sometimes do that. So that gives you that opportunity. The only stipulation with land only is you must be at the airport when we land, or you must be at the first hotel. You will miss what happens from the airport to the first hotel, or we have to somehow connect with you and make sure that you know where we're at and you can come and join us. So it's not impossible. I mean, it would be something that you could do if you want to be a little creative. I think that pretty much covers it. So I'll find out from the office. Give us a good week and a half for that to transpire, because by the time they do all their work, it takes a little while. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, so then there's just a few, they're not puddle jumper flights, they're smaller flights, but that move us around again, so we avoid the really long driving, which would be really helpful. Any questions? That was a lot of what we wanted to cover tonight. It was a hair chili is what it was. I pulled it up. Anybody like ChatGPT? Anybody? I've been obsessed with AI. So I pulled it up on AI, but there's some fun things that way. Let's see, where is it? So nope, that's not showing the right thing. This is always a challenge with doing yeah. It is not full. We still have room for about 2 to 3 couples. So if you know of anybody, that's a great question. Thank you. If you know of other people that would love to come, please tell them about it. We'd love to have others coming. There's a number of people that are also signed up that weren't able to be here tonight. But yeah, we do have some room. That'd be great to have. The more the merrier. So
I did put this in the Grace notes at Grace for a couple of weeks. So if there's anyone at Grace, Peterman's unfortunately couldn't. They got back to me, but if there's anyone at Grace who might be interested, please let them know. love to have them come.
So they're saying Athens is around the 68 to 70. That's a more comfortable temperature. Thessalonica a little bit less, 63 to 68. At the average low is in the mid 50s. Cappadocia
comfortable.
mid 50s to low 60s. And Istanbul middle 60s. So it's a hair chilly. Probably that fall, probably about what we're leaving is probably about what it's going to be. So we're probably used to it by that time. Again, layers. So during the day, it'll probably be pretty comfortable and you won't need too much, but have a light jacket with you. So I don't think any of it said, well, the Istanbul might be a light rain, increased humidity, but most of it wasn't too bad. So they get some AI had a bunch of recommendations about, light clothing. Again, we want to be comfortable. So don't feel like you have to bring a suit coat or anything like that or a dress. I mean, whatever you feel comfortable wearing is really up to you, it's your trip. We want you to really enjoy it. So be comfortable and nobody's going to care in the group. We all just get along and just enjoy ourselves. The worship services are really like the one we had in Corinth was out underneath a tree.
Yeah. Just
And it
gorgeous.
was cool.
Our altar was a 2,000-year-old pillar.
And it was so cool how a lady just suddenly said, "Can I join you?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's." So it was a lot of fun. So, going into the mosques and that kind of thing is where, and even that, it's a tourist experience. So, it's being comfortable. Anything you want to say about clothing?
I'll also find out what it would cost to do a balloon ride. That's probably the most unusual thing that you might want to do while you're there. I'll find out approximately what it costs.
So one of the famous things about Cappadocia. Has anyone been to Cappadocia? Sally, you guys haven't? Cappadocia, it's famous for its balloon rides. I'm not sure why. It's just the landscape is so interesting to see. But if we do, if there is a group that wants to go, it does have to be an early morning thing. I think they want you out there pretty early. So we'll give you all that before we leave, but even on if you're like, I think I really want to do this. So it'd be really cool. Yeah, I'm a photographer, so I'll be bringing my camera and my 360 camera. So we've got some new things with that. I'm totally excited about this. So, any other questions? We won't keep you here all night. So, feel free. On the sheet is I'll put that out again, Randy and Erica. On the sheet is our email. It was in the email before, our phone numbers. Feel free to contact us any way you want with questions. We're happy to answer questions. And if we don't know the answer, we'll figure it out for you.
And if you know of someone who might be interested, please, they're welcome to contact us.
Yeah, happy to help them with that. Yes.
Other people will.
There will be a video from this meeting that so I'll put it on the email, I'll send out the information, the stuff we have here. Maybe I can get a copy of your map. I'll make a scan of it. And one thing we try to start doing is start accumulating information to share. So one thing I've done before is created it's a program called Airtable that I'm in love with, and I use it for everything I do nowadays. But it has I'll put together a link that starts to become places where you can go watch. If you find, for example, a great YouTube video, we will have this up on YouTube, so that link will be there for people to watch. But if you find something like a Rick Steves or something like that, you're like, this is the best, send me the link and we'll put it up there for others to watch. So it just becomes ways to help. Books that we might want to check out. I think we had the one from the Footsteps of Paul, the first trip. So if there's things that really help people get prepared for the trip, I mean, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. But if you want to start to get prepared, and so that when you get there, you're like, oh, I've been reading about this, or I watched a video on it, anything like that, that's helpful. It's great. So, okay. Otherwise, would you want to close this in prayer?
Gracious Lord, we thank you for this opportunity as we prepare 6 months from now to travel in the footsteps of Paul. As we remember this amazing man of faith and all those who worked with him, who labored with him, who struggled with him, who celebrated with him, we pray that the good news will come alive to us as we go to these places, remember these events, and see how they apply to us today. May you keep us safe as we prepare for our trip, and may we have a wonderful, wonderful pilgrimage in Paul's name. Amen.
Thank you for joining us online too. Appreciate it. Good night. Any questions at home, Erica and Randy? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll see you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. If there's any way. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me